All right, so today we got to talk a little bit more about schools and the craziness that's going on um, with schools and just school even before the whole pandemic, but it's got even worse. And this is from Yasmin Moulton, and she links to a Toronto Sun article. And she says last year, 680 teachers in London, Ontario earned a total compensation of over $120,000 a year. The median income in the London and surrounding areas, 37,000. And again, this is something that I've been pointing out at nauseum pretty much, and it's just absolutely insane that public school teachers are some of, and again, there's obviously exceptions to this too. I know I come off as kind of hard on some of these people. I understand there's exceptions to the rule, but when it comes to this, I'm talking about generalities because even if 10 or 20% of people don't fit the general stereotype, that really doesn't matter because when we're talking about groups as a whole, again, exceptions to the rule don't matter. Like exceptions to the rule don't matter. That's why whenever you point out the whole, you know, I mean the stuff with women more likely to vote for the left or women more likely to whatever, and people say, oh, they're only 20% more likely. That mean, but the reality is that a 20% difference is 200,000 people when you're talking about a popular when you're talking about a population of 1 million people. Again, that's a very big difference. When you're talking about 100 people, yeah, that's very little difference. It's only 60-40. But when you're talking about 1 million or 10 million, all of a sudden the differences is massive. So again, I understand there's exceptions to the rule. I absolutely understand that. But the reality is that, like I say, when we're talking about massive groups of people, we don't care about exceptions to the rule. So anyway, um, public school teachers, yeah, like I mean, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but there's still so many people that seem to um, just not really understand this. And the reason that most people don't understand this is that it's generally a left-right issue for the simple reason that the left wants more money to end up in the hands of unions because money that ends up in the hands of unions ends up in the hands of the left, right? Because unions overwhelmingly donate to the left, so of course they want money to end up in their hands. It's the same reason why the left constantly criticizes the right for giving money to the oil companies and the evil banksters and whatever they complain about, which is somewhat overstated, but they are right about to an extent. But the reality is that they do the exact same thing, just in different ways. And this is again why I give the left zero credibility when it comes to this kind of stuff, because they complain about a problem, but their solution to the problem wouldn't make the problem any worse. Rather than money ending up in the hands of the oil executives and, like I say, the evil oil companies and the rich, they they give money to the corp not the corporations, the unions and the public school teachers. And again, um, it's pretty much no different. I mean, you look at Justin Trudeau, look at how much money that they were, look at how much of a conflict of interest. I mean, Justin Trudeau's mom was getting like $350,000 from them, plus a six-figure sports car. His brother got like 40, 50 grand. You have Telford's husband getting a big grant. You have some big company out of Quebec getting a massive grant. You have the Kielburgers benefiting personally. I mean, there's that kind of stuff happens. It happens just as much on both sides. Now, where the left loses credibility is that the left's solution to these problems is to simply, let's just give the government more power rather than reducing the government's power, because the less power the government has, the less likely they are to be able to give away massive amounts of money to their friends, right? Like it's very simple. Like if you run a small town, there's a lot less money to be available to be used for corrupt purposes than when you run a country. Why? Because when you run a country, you have a lot more power than if you're mayor of a small town, right? So it's very simple. The solution to these problems is just to give the government less power, right? Just decentralize things. But again, the left doesn't want that because the left wants the corruption just when they're in power. It's okay when my team does it, is basically their argument. And it's the same thing with public school teachers, is that they don't care about kids' education. This is how the left operates, is that they pretend to care about an issue, which maybe they care about to an extent, but the reality is that they want to further an agenda, right? They don't, again, the charter schools have been proven to do a better job educating kids, and they do it for cheaper. Now, why does the left always against school choice? Because they want money to end up in the hands of the unions, right? And they want money to end up in the hands of the teachers as well, because teachers overwhelmingly vote left, and public school teachers overwhelmingly are going to be biased and teach their kids said bias. So again, that's why they want it in a nutshell. And again, if they actually cared about the quality of kids' education, they would be perfectly for competition. But because they're not for competition, you know by definition that they don't care about the quality of kids' education, right? Because, like I said, if they did, they would be perfectly fine with competition, because if public schools truly are better, the public schools would simply outcompete charter schools, and charter schools would no longer exist. But everybody knows in the back of their head that that's not the reality. Everybody knows that public schools do a terrible job educating kids. Most of the people that work there are relatively overpaid, a lot of them grossly overpaid. And again, it's the argument I've brought up a million times, but if public, again, I have no problem with a teacher making $100,000 or $120,000 a year and having 3 months off. I have no problem with that, as long as it's in the free market. Because when it's in the public sector, people are paid based off coercion. They're not paid based off people voluntarily paying them. Like, I don't care if teachers want to make $250,000, $500,000 salaries, if they can get people to voluntarily pay them that much. Again, that's the main argument here. So again, that's the first thing I wanted to bring up. The other thing I wanted to bring up is somewhat related, but this is from Joe Pilot here on Twitter, and he says, I just heard a teacher saying schools shouldn't reopen until there are no new cases of the virus for 14 days. Let me tell you something, folks. There will never be a 14-day period of time where there are no cases of the virus. Now, again, this is what the teachers want. This is what the teachers are saying. We want to work as little as possible but still get paid. I guarantee you, if you told these teachers that we're not going to pay you if you don't come back to school, I guarantee you that the vast majority of them would all of a sudden change their minds. I guarantee it. Especially if you told them, yep, we're not going to pay you and we're going to get rid of your pensions. I guarantee you, I would bet every dollar I have that the majority of teachers, the vast majority of teachers, would be perfectly fine coming back to school. All of a sudden, they would change their minds. Again, so that's kind of what I wanted to point out today. Just the craziness that's going on out there. And um, when it comes to reopening schools, I do think that there should be some regulations. When it comes to the kids, there should be next to no regulations. There's no need to make them wear masks, because number one, the death rate for kids is less than the flu. I think it's actually significantly less than the flu. And number two, kids are never going to wear masks properly. And again, if people don't wear masks properly, they're pointless. And the other thing too is that unless you're over 50, which some teachers are, again, over 60 especially, those teachers probably should, they obviously need some very, um, very, I don't know what you want to call it, but some reasonable precautions taken. But if you're under 50, there's next to nothing you need to be worried about. I mean, literally 3 people under 50 have died in Alberta from the virus, not one person under 20. And I guarantee you that probably all of those people had comorbidities. I guarantee you that not one of those people was very healthy. So again, that is the problem, is that if you're young and healthy, and by young I literally mean under 50, even under 50 or under 60 to an extent, you have nothing to be worried about. And this is why it's just the people that want to keep these lockdowns going and not reopen schools, which I think that there's a different reason to not reopen schools, not because of the virus, because of this, not because of the spread of the virus, but because of the spread of communism. But um, there's no reason to hold the position that they're holding, basically. And anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to bring up today. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out those other links here in the description. Make sure you follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more.